like the new music, I can tell.
I do.
Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow. We are back here in studio at the Hendrickson Library, part of the Institute for the Preservation of Western Civilization. It still does not roll off the tongue for me, but yet here we are. We got Sarah Curry in the studio today. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing great.
You are laughing. You love the music.
I do love the music.
I do too. I spent a lot of time trying to pick that out. I don't know if you know that, but
I'm a country girl at heart, so
yeah. I think the creators of that would call it Southern rock or blues, but I think those lines are fairly blurry. But you're from that part of the world.
Oh, I love me some good bluegrass.
Good.
Oh yeah,
that's fantastic. Well, good. Well, I'm glad to have you back here in the studio today, and because I've been promising the folks for quite some time that we would get you back here in the studio to talk about bond elections and whatever else is on the ballot at the local level coming up. So we've got. Are you ready?
I'm ready to roll.
Okay, because both of us are like, well, what are we going to talk about here? Because there is so much, and you know, you wrote an article recently on the repeat offenders, like, so because one of the things that you track is, okay, well, we know we've got a bond election or whatever it might be on the ballot, and yet this is something that maybe they've come back to once or twice before, yet they keep asking. But even that is a long list. There's plenty of other things that are out there that are on the ballot this fall. So anyway, I want to talk about, so I'm going to start with the repeat offenders. What these are probably bond elections that were up maybe in March and now they're up again. Is that right? Tell me, just take it away. Like what were you tracking here?
So I kind of go back to when we started tracking all of this, which was in March of 22.
Right.
Or 23, excuse me. And so I went through property tax increases or bonds.
Yes.
And so some of them school districts in particular had physical plant and equipment levies, the PEPA levies, and some of them passed. And now they're coming back and asking for a bond. And then some of these local governments had bond issues that failed, and they're coming back and asking for more. And one entity had a bond measure pass and is now coming back for another bond measure. So really just letting people know that these things add up over time. You know, 60 cents here, 20 cents there. It doesn't seem to make a big difference at the moment, but over time, it's why our property taxes just keep going up and up and up.
Yeah, if you would listen just to local government, they would tell you it's just the levy rate, right? But it's all this other hidden things that really they aren't always that forthcoming about. The chart that you have in this article is really good because it's color coded and it talks about, you know, when was this on the ballot again. But we've seen this for a long time where these local governments just keep asking over and over until finally the folks give in or finally they give up. But are there any of these on the list where I'm asking for your opinion on it? Where, okay, they went to the ballot, voters said no, but they've come back with a better plan. And like, okay, maybe it's a school bond and they decided we're not going to do the athletic facilities. We're just going to do the classroom improvement. Like, because I think if you'd like to see that kind of progress on some of these, right?
Yeah, so we actually, you know, I really give a lot of kudos to Lewis Central School District. Last year they asked for a $90 million bond. They were going to have to raise their property taxes to do it. So there was a property tax increase asked with that as well. They both failed. Their superintendent sent out a survey. He tried really, really hard to get people that were outside, did not have children in the school district. So outside people to ask, what is reasonable? What can we do? We have these needs. How do we accomplish it? And from my understanding, most of the people responded and they just said, we don't want our property taxes to go up. Lewis Central is a very responsibly funded school district. And so they've come back with $30 million. So they've cut their bond by 2/3 and there's no property tax increase to go with it.
Yeah.
I think that's very responsible. You know, they have needs. They're bonding.
It's a growing district, right?
It is growing. And you know what? I am not opposed to bonding for certain projects. Like debt might be an appropriate use of money for that.
Just so everyone's aware, Lewis Central, if I'm not mistaken, is the newer parts of Council Bluffs and some of the
It's
rural
like,
area outside.
Yeah, it's southern Council Bluffs, southern Potawatomi County.
Yeah, okay.
Out there. Yep. So that's the Lewis Central District. So they're a really good example. You got another example like Underwood. They're asking for the same amount. It failed last year. They're coming back asking for more or for the same thing. So you're like, okay, did you really listen to people? They said no, and now you're coming back. But then you've got Lawton Bronson School District. They had a bond measure fail last November, and now they're coming back and asking for more.
Yeah.
And you're like, really?
I guess what I'm getting at is it just shows that you're not listening. Is that if you can't even change the proposal to match what people are saying, it's really tone deaf to just keep asking over and over, because what you're telling voters is that we know better. Instead of the voters said, you know what, we don't want this. Try again. Do something different. Make it like Lewis Central. Make it so that my property taxes don't go up or don't go up as much. It's like I'm always much more open-minded to it happened. Okay. It happened here in Polk County a few years back. And I think might even been before. I know it was before you were with ITR, but I think it's probably been a decade now, where the Polk County Courthouse project. Look, they needed to make some changes. The historic courthouse didn't work. The first time they came out, it was way too much. People said no. It came back and they trimmed it down. People again said no. And then they finally, and I don't know whether that was actually at the end where they ended up was the right project, but in the end, it was 30-40% less than the original amount, and they approved it. And it seems to be working pretty well. They different building projects and moving around. And it's like, well, that's encouraging that they at least tried to fit this into what voters were telling them. Now, where I personally, and this is me selfishly, I'm gonna get on this, is Dallas County. So we've talked about this, Sarah, but Dallas County, fastest growing county in Iowa, I'm pretty sure, they're going to have needs. You cannot continue to do everything in the historic courthouse. So they're building a new administration building now, which I think I've heard many people say is probably being overbuilt. But then they went ahead and on top of that had a massive tax increase this year, raised the levy rate, and so I think about 25% year over year. And on top of that, now they're going back to the voters this fall for a new criminal justice or criminal courts building to the tune of another, I think, $57 million. It's just too much at once. And this is their first ask. Is this really $57 million what we need? Is this really, did you really do your best to try and sharpen your pencil here? But
the analysis you just provided us for Dallas County is why ITR does this. We want to encourage our listeners and people in Iowa to ask those very important questions. Do we need this? Do we need it at this level? Is this money spent necessary? And let's go to Boone for just a second here. Yeah. In 2022, Boone proposed a $10 million bond for a rec center, and it failed. They proposed the $10 million bond for a rec center in 2023. At the 11th hour, right before things were due to the auditor, they pull it from the ballot because they got so much negative feedback from taxpayers. So if I'm on that city council, I'm thinking, time to go to the drawing board. We're not doing this project. People have spoken pretty much twice now. We're not doing this. Oh no. We got a new mayor. So guess what? Next month, Boone voters get to vote on a $10 million rec center.
Yep.
And it's like, come on, people, respect. It's respect. And that's what it is. Respect the voters. We have a democratic process. You asked them. They have given you their opinion. And you're disregarding that opinion. Yeah. And that's not what our democratic process was meant to be. And so that's why I did the repeat offenders article. I could have cross-referenced this with the pain index to see, oh, look, they're jacking up the rates. And now...
like Dallas County.
So there's lots of stories to glean from the information that we provide voters, but ultimately it's information, right? If you have information and you ask questions, you can find out what's going on, and you either support or you don't support the proposal, but ultimately be an informed voter.
Right. Well, I think a lot of Iowans instinctively get these things. Iowans know that debt costs money, and they're willing to take that on for projects they think are worthwhile or they've done their work on, and they're willing to, pay a certain amount in taxes for things they see are important, but they instinctively know that all of these increases aren't necessary at the level they're being told by their local elected officials. And you're right. The project is about trying to equip people and help to provide information and sharpen their talking points and make sure that when they go in to speak to their elected official or show up at a budget hearing or even talk to their neighbors, they're on point and they're talking about things. And so, yes, we're trying to be a conduit. We're trying to educate. We're trying to inform. And there's a lot of stuff in here. So I trust that all of our listeners are in regularly reading the stuff you put on ITR Foundation. I think we have a lot of people just cruising there daily to make sure there's no new content. But you definitely should go in and read this. And there's other information on there about what's coming up in November as well. I do want to. Do you have anything else on the repeat offenders? Because I don't want to get off that too quick.
I have one. I want to bring. So we talked about the Clarinda School District on past.
And that's kind of where I wanted to make sure we didn't. Yeah, that
so
we didn't
talked about
skip
Clarinda, and so for listeners that don't know, Clarinda has just hammered their taxpayer, the school district, over and over and over again, for a bond, tax increase, all that. But I want listeners to know. So the Clarinda School District is in Page and Taylor counties.
Yep.
Less than a year ago, Page County voters passed a bond to build a new jail. Now, Page County voters have a emergency medical services or ambulance property tax increase before them. You pay county, you pay city, you pay school district taxes. They all add up on each other. So Page County voters believed the jail was worth it. They did not believe that the Clarinda School District requests were worth it. Mm-hmm. I am interested to see if they believe that this EMS levy is worth it. And I think that is a really, really good case study to show voters understand what's going on. And it just hammers home the issue of voters make the right decision for their community, and people and the elected officials in those communities need to respect it. So I'm watching the Page County election results really, really closely, just because there's been so much activity there and with varying degrees of support.
Yeah. And I think that's right. The EMS levies, we've talked about that. My perspective, most of them have passed. Didn't they all pass?
When they first introduced them in 2022, only half of them passed. But since that point, all of them have been passing. Yeah. Iowans,
look, I live in suburban, the suburban Des Moines area in Dallas County. I live 2 or 3 blocks from an ambulance. So when I call 911, I know that I get service, but I know that's not the case around Iowa. And that's a service that Iowans place a high degree of priority on. And so I think it's easier for locals to get an EMS levy passed because folks want to believe that they call 911 and so the ambulance is going to show up at their house. But that's a priority. I think what we're seeing is more and more of these school bonds don't rise to that same level. Some of them do, and some of them are needed. And maybe Lewis Central will pass this. Mm-hmm. Maybe a growing district, they have needs. I get that. Waukee has needs as a growing district. They have to build buildings, and they probably have to bond to do it. Are they doing it the right way? I don't know.
They need that aquatic center.
Well, yeah, that the natatorium. So for you folks around Iowa that are, wish that you had, basic things at your school, Waukee School District built a natatorium, which is the fancy aquatic auditorium building.
That's the school district. Now the city wants their own.
Right. They're going to build an aquatic center. So anyway, it's wants versus needs. I think they're on the opposite side of that line from where I think they ought to be. But the point being is that the growing areas have certain needs. We understand that. But these are up to locals to decide. And some of the fluffy things in declining enrollment districts, those are wants. And especially if your district probably ought to be looking at ways to working with less, not just continuing to build new buildings.
Well, let's talk about new buildings. Take a guess, unless you've already read the article. How many new bond proposals are going to be in November? What's the number?
Are these just school bonds?
Nope. There's city, there's a community college, there's counties and schools.
It's got to be a couple hundred, right?
How many?
Yeah.
Oh, well, so you're going to be happy about it. It's only 59.
Oh, okay. Well, I
Well,
that
59.
ought to show you how much faith I have in governmental entities to put bond in front of.
Well, there's 59. So about 82% of the state's population will have a debt question before them in November. So 9 of those are for cities. 1's a community college. That's Iowa Western.
Yep.
5 are for counties. A lot of them are conservation boards trying to buy more land. And then 31 are for public school districts. I do want to call out a very positive bond election, and that's the Waterloo School District.
We have talked around this a couple of times. I want to hear your take on this.
You know, I am really proud of the people of Waterloo. Do you want me to just give some backstory?
Yeah, we've talked about this because they're actually. Yeah, go ahead.
So in July, the Waterloo School Board, 5 members, they vote to issue $165 million in revenue bonds using that 1% sales tax that comes from the state, the SAVE money, to build a new middle school and convert a high school and do some stuff. Well, voters don't have to vote on revenue bonds because the money's coming from sales tax, not coming from property tax. Well, people listening are like, that's a lot of money for 5 people to make a decision on. And so the school board was like, okay, well, the law allows you to petition for an election. Go do it. I think they only had 2 weeks or something. They got the signatures. They petitioned and they succeeded. And so now this revenue bond is coming before voters in a November election. And I think that is phenomenal, regardless of the outcome. The citizens have spoken. They wanted more. And a lot of people said, I'm not talking about the merits of the project. I just think more than 5 people need to sign a community up for that much spending. And I think that's so responsible. It shows that the democratic process is working. People in that community are listening and they're taking a stance and for their local government. And I just think the whole thing is so positive.
I'll be very interested to see what happens up there. So what they're trying to do is actually combine the 2 high schools. So you have Waterloo East, Waterloo West, and they want to build one combined high school. And I don't know if they turn the other 2 into middle schools, or I don't know. But anyway, Waterloo would go to having just one single high school. And I remember watching the superintendent when they first rolled this out, and he tried to go out to voters, which is he ought to do. Kudos to him. Goes on local TV, does the interview with Ron Steele, which if you're not from the Waterloo Cedar Falls area, you wouldn't know that, but he's kind of the guy. And talks about it. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to save money. We're trying to deliver better services, so on and so forth. You made a good case. I don't know whether that's the right thing or not. I haven't done enough homework on it, but at least it was cast in terms of we're not only just trying to do the best thing for the students, we're trying to do it the most cost-effective way. I suspect that there's a lot of voters up there who, in addition to balking at the amount of money, will also not be real crazy about their high school getting closed or whatever. But it's just an interesting one to follow, and I want to see what happens with that. But yes, at a base level, kudos to the voters for doing that in shorter, because it's a lot. The number of signatures you have to get is a lot.
Oh, it's a lot, and that's the largest bond measure we have this election. So
it's a function of how many people you had vote in the last presidential election, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. And they did it. They succeeded, which a lot of groups don't do that. So total, all the bonds, about $1 billion and more spending. The majority of that are school districts.
Yeah.
They're around $850 million in the ask. Counties are next highest, and then cities, and then, of course, the community colleges at the end. And so we have all of this on ITR Local, and I want our listeners to know you can't find this information anywhere else.
Right.
Nobody else is crazy enough to sit down and do what I do for a few weeks and contact all 99 auditors and compile all of this and put it together. But I think it's so important for us to see what our state is doing. And are there different messages being sent? Just like the situation in Page County versus Waterloo versus Lewis Central. You have to have a feeling for what's going on across Iowa. And the only way to do that is to follow these things.
We know that people want this information because it is not uncommon that we see, for example, the charts at ITR Local popping up on people's Facebook pages where they've just gone, we don't even know them. We haven't even pushed the data out. And they will have find that and be using it in their own local communities to argue with their friends and neighbors, which kind of comes full circle here as to what big picture we're trying to do, and you touched on this a little bit, is we're trying to link people with the information. And I'm going to kind of wrap this up with making the pitch of, one, how can people find the information? How can they get connected with us? What do they need to be doing to take advantage of this and share it in their communities? So maybe this is just sort of a chance for you to sell the whole project.
Yeah. So, well, first, I want to let everyone know I deeply care about local government. I mean, I care.
It's no joke. It's no joke, folks.
I've been involved in local government for over a decade. And then, I'm from North Carolina, Western North Carolina, when all the floods are hitting. And, there's all the criticism about FEMA and the federal government coming in. And I see my friends on Facebook, like the churches coming together and the community coming together. And I was talking to my family about this, like, isn't it great to see what local communities can do for each other? So I really do passionately feel about the power of community. And I saw that during the 2019 floods in Southwest Iowa, and just the community coming together to help people. So ITR Local is really founded in this basis of community and trying to help share that information. And some people look at government and it's hard to understand, or, it's too many numbers and they just don't get it. And we want to take that away, and we want to make it easy to understand, and we want to get people engaged in their community, because it's more than volunteering at the soup kitchen or, the local food bank. It's also about talking to your local government officials about the services that are offered in your community. So we have ITR Local to help kind of make that bridge and get people to where they can understand what's going on with their property taxes, how it affects their pocketbook, but also their neighbors, and then the services and the spending that's going on in their community. And so you can visit itrlocal.org, and you can pull up your school district, your city, your county, and you can get all of that information. Sign up for our newsletters. All these articles that we talk about on this podcast, we send out in those newsletters. All my nerdy tables and data and charts that I put on the website, we send those out. But then people can also contact me. I am happy to look at stuff. I just had some people in Hamilton County, Webster City, and they just had me, ask some questions. So I kind of looked into stuff and helped them with that. So I love looking into this stuff. I love talking to people. But anyway, so it's very personal and it's very real. And I want people to understand it's more than just a job to us. We genuinely want people to be involved. And that's why I feel like the thing happening in Waterloo is really, I sound so sappy, right? But it's heartwarming, right? Because they're taking a stand, they're getting involved. And I think that's so important. And if there's information that you as a taxpayer or a member of ITR want and we don't have it, I want you to email me, call me, let me know, because I want to help you be the best citizen and in your community. And so if I can give you information or help explain something so that you can do that, I want to help.
Well said.
Sorry, that was my long rant.
No, that's right. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted folks to know that we're not just publishing articles on a website and talking into these microphones and sending out. We genuinely want to be helpful. We want to work with people, get them what they need. We want to connect individuals together out in communities, and let us know. Let you know. Let it so that we can do a better job of doing those things. So, yeah. Well, great. All right. That is. I don't want to say we're out of time, but I think we're out of time for right now. So. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
Well, I will be back because I am going to northeastern Iowa for a talk next week. So I'm going to stop by in Des Moines. So maybe we can do this again.
That's a long ways from Glenwood.
That is why we have hotels.
Yes. Great.
Yes.
Well, we're a statewide organization, and we will be across the state of Iowa. So, all right, Sarah, thank you very much. Listeners, thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends. And don't forget to visit itrfoundation.org for all of Sarah's work. And with that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.